Mario Kart World is quite an interesting game. Being the first open world Mario Kart installment, the developers over at Nintendo needed to balance interesting track design with exploration and interconnectivity. While some tracks are expertly designed as both explorable areas and racing circuits, others focus almost entirely on the latter. So, let's see which open world areas are the best and which ones are literally unexplorable. It is literally not in the open world. Choco Mountain may have some cool tribute tracks in it, but everything else is pretty much just the track from Grand Prix mode. You've got a mostly one-way track with very little room to explore. One of the only examples of interconnectivity on this track is a tunnel behind the starting line that leads you to a later section. Overall, pretty underwhelming. Great Question Block Ruins has a bit more exploration. A bit. There are quite a few interesting parkour routes here, such as in the giant block or past this turn. However, they are relatively off the beaten path. Apart from those, it is yet again just the track. Drybones Burnout, similarly to the prior tracks, is mostly just the Grand Prix circuit. While there is an open world only area here, it is hidden in a random corner, making it unlikely that someone will find it. On top of that, it is relatively small and visually bland, so it isn't even that rewarding. Dandelion Depths is a step in the right direction, but not by much. The water cave is large and open, although there isn't much in it. Also, there are a couple of roads going under the track. However, that's about the extent of exploration here. Desert Hills may have changed up the aesthetic quite dramatically from its original incarnation, but it certainly looks nice. However, the same cannot be said for the exploration. This track has very little interconnectivity, and most of the free roam exclusive content consists of small side areas. Starvey Peak definitely isn't peak. In fact, it might be one of the worst cases of linear track syndrome so far, being mostly made up of one-way track. However, the library area is kinda cool and pretty open, so it somewhat salvages it. Acorn Heights contains a few paths that branch off the main track, but most of them just lead to the lake at the front. While there is some exploration you can do here, it mainly consists of driving around the track's final few sections. Peach Stadium is a tale of two halves. While the top section is both linear and one-way, the bottom section is quite a lot better. The train station is basically entirely open, so you can drive around here all you want. There are also drivable walls at the sides that you can mess around with. It's just a shame there's not much else here. Hooper Trooper Beach has some good areas. There's a tribute track right next to it, as well as an open world exclusive area at the top of the rock with a half pipe and a glider ramp. Unfortunately, this track is held back from being that good by its small size. Sky High Sunday is kinda interesting in the open world. While most of it is just a linear track, there are free roam only routes that connect different sections of it. While this does create some interconnectivity, it is still relatively hidden, so it isn't the best. You could probably find some cool routes if you messed around here long enough, but there isn't really enough content to justify that. Cheap Cheap Falls is for the most part extremely linear. Most of the track takes place on a flowing river, making it effectively one way. However, this track is saved by the first section, which contains a lot of interesting things. There are several routes branching off from here, as well as the parkour section atop these buildings. However, there still isn't that much. Peach Beach is quite a strange one. Despite it being a section track, giving it more room to work with, the exploration is still relatively mediocre. The beach area is somewhat interesting, but it isn't really that special. Then, the castle is literally just a linear one-way track with a few shortcuts. Finally, the ocean section is pretty much just water. This track is cool, but it definitely doesn't quite hold up as an open world area. Boost Cinema is a track that varies in interconnectivity from section to section. While the film area is a textbook case of linear track syndrome, the actual cinema does have some branching paths. The tribute tracks outside are also pretty cool. While this track does have some exploration elements, the size definitely does hold it back. DK Pass is, for the most part, a linear track. However, there are a few interesting areas exclusive to free roam, including the DK sign and hidden ski slope. In addition, the areas surrounding the track are pretty cool. Unfortunately, there still isn't that much here that can't already be found in Grand Prix. Toad's Factory is kinda a mixed bag. There is quite a lot of interconnectivity, but it usually requires literally driving off the track. In addition, most of the stuff exclusive to free roam is just a bland plane of concrete. While this is better than a lot of tracks up to this point, there are definitely some far more impressive ones later on in the list. Mario Bros Circuit is pretty cool. While most of it is just a track, it does at least allow you to drive both directions. In addition, there's also an open world only area near the start line, which has some cool parkour opportunities. Overall, a somewhat solid track. Wario's Galleon is very confusing. There are several interesting areas on top of the castles, but the entrances to them are hidden in random corners. In fact, pretty much everything here is hidden. Most exploration requires taking pretty unconventional paths, and even the entrance is pretty hard to find. While there is cool stuff here, finding it is way too hard. Faraway Oasis is an interesting one. While most of the actual track is one way, there are several free roam exclusive routes that connect the different sections of the area. In addition, there is a large lake behind the track with boats that you can trick off of. Despite this, there still isn't that much to see here, so I can't rank it that high. Mario Circuit sounds terrible on paper. Almost the entirety of it is just a track. However, this track is saved by the fact that it is sectioned, meaning that there are 3 different areas you can drive between. In addition, there is some cool scenery here. There still isn't that much interesting content here though. DK Spaceport is probably where these areas start getting good. While the main track is just a collection of straight lines, the surrounding areas are pretty interesting. Probably the most prominent of these is the section under the track, which contains a lot of parkour sections as well as some good scenery. This track is definitely pretty cool. Bowser's Castle is very similar to Peach Stadium. While the top section is about as linear as they get, the bottom section is a different story. Like Peach Stadium, the lower half is a lot more open to exploration. However, here, it has a lot more interesting content, being packed to the brim with parkour, and being filled with hidden areas. Overall, it's a pretty good one. Airship Fortress is pretty interesting to explore. The tower section is surprisingly fleshed out, but the main attraction is definitely the airship. You basically have free reign to explore the entire deck, but there are also some areas of interest inside the ship. It's certainly one of the better open world areas in this game. Whistletop Summit is pretty good as a track, but it isn't that bad in the open world either. There are quite a lot of branching paths near the start, but the mountain area also has some cool secrets to be found. In addition, you can even still do all the parkour that made this track so effective in Grand Prix. If DK Spaceport was where these tracks got good, then this is where they get great. The outside area of Dino Dino Jungle is already pretty interconnected, but this track is boosted even more by the presence of the dome area. This section of the track contains several opportunities for parkour, allowing for some pretty interesting gameplay. Mario Stadium is probably one of the most interconnected tracks in the game. Not only does the main road split off at several points and join back up later, but there is also an entirely open section outside of it that contains loads of parkour ramps. Mario Stadium is definitely one of the best open world locations in this game. Moo Moo Meadows may not be the most interesting track in this game, but it's certainly one of the most interconnected. The giant barn in the middle acts as a central landmark that several areas of the track connect to, allowing for quite a lot of exploration. Because of this, Moo Moo Meadows places strangely high for a silly cow track. Salty Salty Speedway is widely considered one of the most forgettable tracks in the game. However, many also consider it one of the best designed, and it isn't hard to see why. Despite only having a normal track's amount of space to work with, the developers managed to pack so many interesting areas into it. In addition, many of these areas are connected by multiple routes, creating a very exploration-based track. Like the previous track, Shy Guy Bazaar features a lot of interconnectivity, as well as interesting areas such as Daisy's Palace. However, the thing that gives it an edge over Salty Salty Speedway is its larger size, which allowed the developers to pack more content into it. This is absolutely one of the most interesting tracks to explore in Mario Kart World. And now, in first place is Crown City. Like Shy Guy Bazaar, this track has a lot of space to work with. However, Crown City does a lot more with the space than the previous track. Each area of the track has a different feel to it, and there sure are a lot of them. With so much to explore, this track definitely earns the top spot in this ranking. Hi everyone, thanks for watching this video. Obviously, this ranking was just my opinion, so let me know what you think in the comments. Like and subscribe for more videos, and see you next time.